Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare.
When I look over at her finally, she is seated on the edge of the seat with her hands in between her legs and wriggling, staring at me like she wants to eat my soul, and she's effing panting. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. NSFW, what's the accidentally hottest thing done by someone who wasn't intending to turn you on?
Number 1.
I was at a neighborhood concert one time and this girl was making her way up to the front while the masses of people were pushing and kicking each other. This very cute girl stopped to talk to me to see what's up, and at that moment, everyone decided to sandwich together, so my body was pressed against her tightly. She was directly in front of me, facing me, and she was pretty humorous too because while we were literally face to face she said nice weather we're having. Never saw her again, but I still think about her.
Number 2.
9 years ago, my friend and I were walking through a park in a snowstorm one night. We began throwing snowballs and getting really into it when he threw me into a snowbank. That's probably when I began to actually notice him. We wrestled together all winter, and I still didn't really think about him sexually. Finally, in February, I was at his house and the snow was 3 feet deep and coming down in a blizzard, so I was just going to sleep on the couch for the umpteenth time when we began wrestling again. One thing led to another, and I didn't sleep on the couch. We've been married for 6 years now. Being forceful is a huge turn on for me.
Number 3.
My wife knew she was wearing a blazer the next day for a meeting, but couldn't decide what skirt. So she was going back and forth to the closet for different skirts to see in the mirror, but the whole time only wearing the blazer and panties. Sexiest combination ever.
Number 4.
One time a friend of mine and I were hanging out in a park practicing LARP fighting, and he hit me so hard that he broke the weapon he was holding. Inch-thick PVC pipe, through several layers of foam, shattered into 3 distinct pieces. The sound of the core snapping echoed off the trees was so loud, and I couldn't stop giggling for like 10 minutes. In retrospect, I sort of suspect it was a moment like this for him, but I was distracted by the adrenaline rush. But worry not, this is not the end of the story. 3 years later or thereabouts, I got in his car to go somewhere. We had kind of drifted apart, didn't live close enough together to hang out often, but I happened to find the time one day to try to catch up. A little while after driving later, I noticed a little almost ring of PVC pipe, attached to the driver's side sunshade by the sharp broken bits. I squinted at it, somewhat puzzled. "Is that from that sword you broke on me?" "Yep," he said, like this was a totally normal thing to have kept for 3 years. Why?" I wondered. He looked a little tortured for a split second, like he couldn't decide what to say. Then, in this very quiet, sad voice, he said, "It reminds me of you." Something about the tone of voice just hit me really hard, like, "Oh, holy shit, you've been pining and I've been paying no attention at all. This is terrible. I can't even kiss you because you're driving. We're engaged now."
Number 5.
Italian exchange student at my school. He started speaking Italian on the phone to a friend who had called, and I absolutely melted. Anyone who can casually fluently speak 2 languages automatically turns me on a little, and I have no idea why. Edit. Fantasy languages count. Bonus points if it's from Doctor Who, Harry Potter or Stargate. All languages count, even the not pretty ones, because what's attractive is the intelligence behind it, at least for me. Computer coding doesn't count, but is definitely extremely impressive as I have trouble turning on a computer even if I'm in my best lingerie.
Number 6.
I watched one of my good friends from high school in a play. He was the villain and had this rough relationship with a prostitute who hated him. There wasn't any violence on stage or anything, but the choreography got me so hot and bothered. I later fooled around with him just because of that scene.
Number 7.
About 12 years ago I lived in Utah. A good friend was a rather plain-looking, very religious, very repressed Mormon housewife. She came to a Halloween carnival at my kid's school dressed as a witch. It wasn't intended to be a sexy witch costume, but it was low-cut. That, in conjunction with the dramatic witch makeup, made her hot as hell. It was very jarring to see someone I had never given a second thought dressed that way. I wanted her so bad. I played it cool and tried to not let it show, but never saw her the same again.
Number 8.
I was walking to lunch from my office and this incredibly beautiful woman, classy as hell, in a really nice, tastefully short and airy dress was jaywalking across the street. A car turns right from the intersection, and has to stop while she crossed, and the guy decided to honk at her. She stopped dead in front of this guy's car and effing spit on the hood. Seeing a beautiful, classy woman get so aggressive and disgusting really did it for me.
Number 9.
Had a GF in high school, or fresh out of high school, that I was hanging out with one day, and her mom called randomly to say she would be late getting home as she had a flat. I offered to go help change it, but she said she had a spare and a stranger had stopped to put it on. She came home an hour later and I noticed the tire was the same size as the one on her normal rims, but the rim itself was disgusting and rusted out. I offered to take the car to my house. Stepdad had a shop and loads of tools, and switch the busted tire with the nice rim out with the nice tire on the busted rim. She agrees and the girlfriend goes with me. I get to the shop and quickly find that the tire press is busted and I would have to use the manual rod. It's basically this 80-pound hollowed out sheath that you slam a solid lead rod into and it breaks the seal on the tire. It's almost 100 degrees out and the shop is aluminum with no AC. Original tire is blown out and it just keeps sliding off the rubber every time I hit it because there isn't enough rubber left for it to grip. I'm sweating profusely after 20 minutes of non-stop hammering and my shirt is sticking to me. I take a quick break to peel my disgusting soaking wet shirt off and go right back at it. I heard my GF make a weird noise but paid it no mind and continued to fix her mom's car in about an hour. When I look over at her finally, she is seated on the edge of the seat with her hands in between her legs and wriggling, staring at me like she wants to eat my soul, and she's effing panting. The pants weren't from it being too hot outside either. It was pretty crazy to know I'm sitting there oblivious as hell while she later admitted that she was immediately turned on as soon as I started it.
Number 10.
I was hanging out with a group of friends at the county fair one day a couple summers back and I had accidentally got an awkward boner. Unfortunately, it was quite obvious. One of the girls I was hanging out with confronted me about my problem and I tried denying these allegations. She then grabbed my crotch to prove me wrong. I'm not sure if she was trying to turn me on by this, but it totally worked. The awkward boner did not go away.
Number 11.
I had a sore back so I went to see a massage therapist. Yes, a legitimate, licensed therapist. She got to work on my back. But every time she pressed on my back, it made my whole body shift on the table. This indirectly stimulated my penis. So I started to get an erection. But I ignored it because she was clearly a professional. Draping was in full effect. But then she found a knot in my back, and started digging into it. The long, slow strokes on my whole back became short, sharp motions in that one spot in my back. Well, that erection I had been ignoring was doing just fine, thank you very much. But now it couldn't be ignored because it was getting a whole lot more stimulation from this increased frequency of motion on my back. I realized that if nothing changed, I would soon be heading to orgasm. I scrambled to collect the words to calmly express to this stranger that she was inadvertently causing me to head rapidly towards an unsolicited orgasm and she might want to do something differently. But this was a new situation for me and the words to express this complex thought were not easy to find, while my penis was getting harder by the second. So before I could utter any kind of warning, I had an orgasm on her table, under her hands. It wasn't as hot as it might sound, because I knew this was not her intention at all. I felt guilty about it. If she had done anything to indicate she was even aware of what was going on, that would have been different.
Number 12.
Went paddleboarding with a Spanish exchange student. She was the hottest woman I ever saw on the face of the earth, body and soul. She was a fiery redhead with a playful personality, and her body seemed to have been sculpted by the hand of God, or the devil, himself. She was a very nice person too, hence we became friends very fast. So we had been in the middle of the lake for about an hour, laying down on our boards face up, smoking weed and talking about the sky. Then some dude in a boat came too close to us and caused some ripples, prompting us to sit up to steady ourselves on the boards. She looks at me, and in the most casual way possible nudges me in the cheek with her feet. Then as I turn to stare at her, she goes on all fours, asks directly at my face, and throws her hair back. Then she stands up and giggles something in Spanish. I don't know what she said, but she ended the phrase with papi. Turns out she was telling me she had a cramp and wanted to paddle further a bit before we went home. Obviously I couldn't stand up, my blood had rushed somewhere else. Then she asked if I had popped a boner. And I said yeah. She laughed. I laughed. I got a roadhead. And that, kids, is how I met your mother. No, seriously, we married last year.
Number 13.
Granted, this was a girl I used to hook up with, but I remember one time we were talking on the phone and I made a comment to the girl about how a number of people who haven't known me a long time think I'm balding because I have a high, not even receding, hairline and a big ol' forehead. She said, people can think what they think. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to imagine you as a bald old man from now on. And, while joking, I said in a very angry/authoritative voice, don't you dare. She just goes, wow. Like, 3 seconds ago I wasn't even a little turned on, but you saying that just turned me on to the point where I'm soaking wet.
Number 14.
When I was a junior in high school, I was in detention with one of our newer, very young teachers. She poured her Dr. Pepper into a glass and a little dribbled down the side of the can. This new, very attractive teacher licked it from the bottom all the way to the top in a very slow, sexy fashion. It has never been harder.
Number 15.
When I first started seeing my ex, she would show up at my cubicle and play coy with me. One day our calves intertwined while we were chatting and it was magical, like I found a new erogenous zone. Neither of us could speak, we were just in that moment, feeling every sensation on that connected flesh. I think it's still accidental in that it was a pleasant surprise, rather than a calculated move on either of our parts.
Number 16.
I was an engineering student in second year of college and had met this girl through a friend of a friend. She was fun and was rare to have classes in common with a girl, being engineering classes and all. Well, one day in the quad she asked me to brush some lint off of her pants in the back while complaining that she didn't like the way the pants snapped in front. So she turns around, undoes her pants, and proceeds to show me. Then she asked me if her underwear feels as soft as it looks. I said I didn't know. Wait. This might not have been accidental.
Number 17.
When my short girlfriend leans on the counter to read something, usually a recipe on her phone. The way her boobs squished against the counter and her ass sticks out leads to many spontaneous sexy times. Also, that one time in high school a female friend accidentally crushed my balls with her foot while she had her legs on my lap. The look of concern over my nuts was pretty awesome.
Number 18.
I was sitting in the library, studying as you do. I was sitting with a friend working on an assignment. To this day, I don't know how the following situation unfolded. For some reason, I was sitting with my left forearm on the desk with my palm up. This girl from our class Solid 9, Tig Old Biddies, comes to ask us about the assignment. She leans over the desk to talk to us and she places her right breast directly into my open palm. It was perfect. It fit exactly in my open palm to the point that she didn't even notice. It was magical. She had to have been wearing a very thin bra because I could almost feel her skin. Needless to say, I jerked it hard that night. I think about it to this day. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.